Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. You know, it's funny, I totally missed my upload yesterday. I was like, there's not that much going on, but it was prophetic at the end of the day because Preseason 2021, Riot are previewing the Mythic and Legendary items that will be hitting the PvE likely tomorrow, I would guess. There is going to be an extended PvE cycle. They will be on the PvE for 6 full weeks before they come to live, so plenty of time for Riot to test things out, to get art assets finished, and to make sure the game is in a good state following all these changes. I'm super excited to talk about this, so let's go ahead and jump right into things. Now, I'm not going to talk about everything. You definitely need to read the article if you want the full stat lines, if you want the full picture on everything that's coming up. I'm just going to be highlighting certain things, and especially things that I think are going to be relevant. This is still going to be a long video, guys, so buckle in for the long haul. First and foremost, talking about the Marksman Mythics. Now, we already saw these, so don't be too surprised by anything that's here, but definitely still want to touch on them briefly. Gale Force, definitely still going to be a good item for low mobility AD carries like Kog'Maw or Jinx. Gives them that very slight amount of mobility to help dodge, skill shot, crowd control. It doesn't help them at all if you have champions that are just going to run them down. So Hecarim, for example, Master Yi, there's nothing this item is going to do for you at all. You'd be better off going with the shield bow item. But generally, there is a niche for this item where it's at right now. Kraken Slayer basically turns everyone into Vayne. You get the bonus true damage on hit. There are some interesting implications with this item as we go further into the item tree here and take a look at some of the other items that exist. But right now, this is basically your pure DPS, I just want to do as much damage as possible item. And it's good if your opponents are playing lots of beef boys because, like I said before, true damage is mostly only relevant against tanks or guys who are building resistances. It doesn't matter against squishies because, sure, you're almost dealing true damage to them anyways. So definitely your good anti-tank option. Immortal Shield Bow, meanwhile, is going to be your survival option for surviving burst damage, or especially if your opponent has lots of divers or assassins, this is going to be a good option. The key here is you gain the shield, but you also gain 20% lifesteal for 8 seconds. So the shield protects you from absolutely dying, and then while the shield persists, hopefully you're able to heal back up to full, because you'll be at 32% lifesteal for 8 seconds. Just on the item alone. Obviously, if you have a Bloodthirster on top of that, you're healing for even more. You have an even bigger shield to start with, and it gives you other legendary items gain bonus resistances, so you survive a little bit longer. I like where that's at. That's your sort of I just want to live option. So if you're going for a more defensive AD carry build, that is your option right there. I like where these items are at. Talking about the new mythics now. Tank mythics have Sunfire Aegis, which is just an upgrade to the old Sunfire Cape. The Immolate passive now stacks up whenever you damage enemy champions or epic monsters, so you deal more Immolate damage over time, and at maximum stacks, your basic attacks explode around you to burn nearby enemies for your Immolate damage for 3 seconds. Now, I do like where this is at, first and foremost, because my boy Malphite can actually use this Sunfire Cape. He really can't use the old Bambi Cinder passive right now, but it still has this kind of deal of stay in combat for long periods of time, get the Immolate damage down, stack up the Immolate damage, get to a point where your auto attacks are doing even more damage. This is sort of your offensive tank item. If you're like, I want to be in the fray doing tons of damage, this is going to be your option to build. It also gives MR, so that's nice. This makes it a better starting item in almost every situation as opposed to right now where if you're against an AP top, maybe you grab the Bambi Cinder early and start working towards a Spirit Visage right now. Now it's sort of, you just go Sunfire Aegis if that's the item you decided you want. Frostfire Gauntlet is your sort of immobilization. This is good if you're dealing with a flighty enemy backline, champions like Callista or Lucian, or otherwise champions that are tough to pin down, as this basically is an upgrade to Iceborne Gauntlet. It just says your attacks create a frost field that slows enemies by 30% for 1.5 seconds on a 4-second cooldown. So no spell blade. You don't have to cast spell and then do your auto attack to get the field. It just says you just hit them and you get the frost field. So I do like where that's at, and it still has the Immolate passive on top of that, so you will still benefit from that sort of baseline burn. These have the same name, so it's a little confusing to me why they're not the exact same passive, but I'm assuming they're just unique passives with the same name, so you can't stack them. So either way, this is going to be good if you're trying to keep enemy champions in a place where you can hit them. The Berserker Suit, meanwhile, is your initiation tool. This is an upgrade to Righteous Glory. It has the active that gives you the bonus movement speed and slow nova with the Immolate passive on top of that. So if you're trying to start a fight, if you're a lower initiation tank, so Maokai, for example, is a big fan of this because this lets him actually run someone down to W them, to press R. It gives him the ability to actually do things with this. So I do like where this item is at. AD Assassin Mythics. Duskblade has gotten some interesting changes here. You no longer have to have the unseen passive. Instead, it's just attacking a champion, deals bonus damage, and slows them by 99% for a quarter second. So they basically just stop right where they're at. That was an effect that was removed earlier. It's back now. And when a champion you've damaged within the last 3 seconds dies, you reset the cooldown on that passive and turn invisible for a second and a half, which is huge. This means that not only are assassins that already want a team fight like Katarina, they already love this item, they already want it, but more importantly, this gives you ability haste. It gives other legendary items ability haste. So even if you're an assassin that doesn't necessarily want to team fight because your cooldowns are too long for you to do that, you have enough ability haste here that potentially you can get the first frag, turn invisible, reset Dusk's cooldown, wait that second and a half for your abilities to start coming back up, auto attack, pop your abilities now that they're back off cooldown. Like, there's some really big potential here for this to turn up big if you plan on team fighting as an assassin. So this is your go-to if your team is built to go for assassinations. Otherwise, you have better options. For example, Eclipse. This is yours, I would say, split push assassin item. It has the effect where if you hit a champion with 2 separate attacks or abilities, you deal bonus physical damage equal to 16% of their max health and gives you movement speed and a shield for a couple seconds with a 6-second cooldown. That means that you're able to sort of hit them a couple times, get the bonus damage, run away to safety with the benefit of the movement speed and the shield. If champions come to try and stop you from split pushing, you're able to kind of proc that passive, protect yourself, get yourself to safety. There are a lot of flexibility here. I dislike how Omnivamp is now a passive. That's a keyworded ability. I hate that that exists now, but either way, I like where Eclipse is currently at. Prowlers Cloth, meanwhile, is an interesting tool for relatively low mobility assassins. I know that's a weird thing to say because assassins have some of the highest mobility in the game, but it gives you the ability to dash through an enemy, dealing damage and reducing their armor by 30%. I can see a champion like Talon building this. If he can't find a convenient wall to flip over, he sort of uses the W or the R to go into stealth, procs the Prowler's Claw to dash through the tank, and then Qs immediately to the back line from there. There are options for champions like Talon or Rengar are the first two I can think of off the top of my head that will get some benefit from Prowler's Claw, so I do like where that's at. Moving on to the AP Mythics. Legendaries Anguish is obviously an upgrade to Legendaries Torment. It gives mana now, and this will be like your first item. So Galio is crying a little bit right now because if he's against Mage's mid lane, he knows they're going to be rushing this item first. It has the burn, and it also shreds their magic resistance up to 25% shred. So this is a great item to build first if you are into an enemy composition that's building a lot of magic resistance. Like if you're a full AP comp, this is an item to build because it gives you that shred. Or if your enemy team has a lot of tanks on it, this is going to be your first item build to sort of limit the amount that these tanks can deal with you. Also, it's a mana item now. Now, don't be concerned too much because AP bruisers will still have an item that has a similar function. We already saw it. It's the Azakana, the Demon Helm, something like that. That has basically the same effect with no mana attached to it. So that's what you'll build on your Mordekaisers, your Rumbles, your Lilias. This, meanwhile, will be your AP mid laner Legendaries Torment. Luden's Tempest is just Luden's Echo. It now is no longer a stack system. It's just every 8 seconds you get your Echo back, and it grants you 30% movement speed for 3 seconds after you proc the sort of explosion. So that's nice. It gives you the ability to kind of kite back. It gives you the ability to go for burst damage. I can see LeBlanc, for example. She throws the first Q, or she dashes on top of you. She gets the bonus movement speed that helps her line up her next couple of abilities to go for the assassination attempt. On top of the burst damage it already grants. I do like where this is at, and especially this is a good item on artillery mages who want to stay back because the bonus movement speed gives them the ability to try and get the heck out of dodge if they are getting run down. Everfrost, meanwhile, is more or less an upgrade to Hextech GLP. It has the Frigid Blast active, which deals damage to enemies in a cone and slows them. Enemies at the center of the cone, though, get rooted, so it is even scarier to deal with, especially if you're a champion like Brand. You kind of walk at enemies, Frigid Blast them, root them. That gives you automatic Conflagration, automatic Pillar of Flame. Then you use your ultimate. The nearby enemies are slowed, so they can't run away from the ult, so you stack up. There are some things you can do with this item for sure. I think it's the least flexible of the items, but certainly they're going to be champions that are really going to want to use Everfrost. Talking about the regular non-mana AP mythics, Hextech Rocket Belt. The Proto Belt is out of its prototype phase. It is going into production as the Rocket Belt now. Now, it's basically the same as it was before. You have the dash with the bolts, but then you gain 75% bonus movement speed towards champions for a second. That means that even if you can't get in range for the bolts, you still get the movement speed to run a champion down. It means that a champion like Kennen, who already kind of uses the Rocket Belt or the Proto Belt for just a little bit more movement to get close enough, so when he does use his Lightning Rush and use his R, he's as close as he can get. The 75% movement speed after that, you Proto Belt, you use Lightning Rush, you use your R, you have 75% move speed from the Rocket Belt. That's a big deal. That could be really, really spicy to look at. So excited to see how that's going to play out. Oxenmix Folly gives you, for each second, you deal bonus damage, and when the effect is maxed, you convert 100% of the bonus damage into true damage. It's basically what Conqueror used to be, but specifically for mages. So I love this. Mordekaiser, for example, this is going to be the keystone he builds in like every single game, because he loves everything that this item does for him, especially because you then build the Demon Helm to give you the burn. You build, there are a couple other items that'll be very effective on especially champions like Mordekaiser. I can see really being able to make use of this item. So love where this is at. Night Harvester is interesting. I'm not really sure who wants to use this. Damaging enemy champions deals bonus magic damage and grants you 25% movement speed for 1.5 seconds. It's a 60-second cooldown, but that's per champion. So right as you start a fight, you can deal a bunch of magic damage right off the bat and gain a ton of movement speed. Rumble, for example, I could see using this. He drops the Equalizer, he hits a bunch of champions with it, they all take bonus damage, he gets a bunch of movement speed to accelerate him into the fray with Flame Spitter going. There's ability haste on this, so he's able to cast his spells more often. I can see maybe some niche uses. It's hard for me to tell specifically who wants this, but definitely there are champions around that are going to want to build Night Harvester, so excited to see who ends up picking this up and who is going to be bound to this item. AD fighters have Trinity Force as one of their mythics. It's relatively unchanged. Now it has a sort of enhanced phage passive. Your attacks give you bonus movement speed and bonus attack damage, and the base attack damage increase can stack up to 6 times. You can have a 30% base AD increase here. That's huge, especially for champions that do auto attack quite a bit like Wukong. I can see making a big use of this item because of how much attack speed he gets and just being able to stack up that base attack damage. Urgot, for example, could be building this and just stack that up super fast with Purge and then have a ton of base AD, be able to do a ton of damage. That could be fun. It still has the Spell Blade. Your next attack deals bonus damage. So, but the attack speed, maybe not on Urgot specifically, but I can see a lot of attack speed centric carries wanting to build this. Aurelia, I think, would be a good option. Camille could be a good option with this item. Either way, like where this is at. Gore Drinker is your dueling option. Aatrox is going to be building this in every game. The active deals damage to enemies in a circle, and it heals you based on your total attack damage and 12% of your missing health for every champion you hit. So Aatrox sort of runs in with his World Ender active. He gets in the middle of the enemy team. He pops Thirsting Slash. He heals himself up. And Aggression gives you 1% increased attack damage for every 5% of your missing health. This is going to stack with things like Last Stand. So Olaf loves this. Aatrox loves this. Tryndamere loves this. These are all items that they're going to get a huge amount of value from. Stride Breaker is your option for dealing with more mobile enemy backlines as a fighter. Dealing physical damage grants you 20 movement speed on hit for 2 seconds. You get more movement speed if you kill the unit by dealing the physical damage. So I can see Darius, for example, prepping this up, waiting for the unit to die, and then gaining the significant amount of bonus movement speed. My question is if this stacks based on number of units, because I could see if you kill the whole backline with a single ability use, do you gain 180 movement speed? My guess would be no, but maybe. It has an active that gives you a very small dash. You deal damage to enemies in a circle and slow them by 60%. So again, if you're a relatively limited mobility Bruiser, so your Darius, your Alawis, your Garens, they all can build this item if they just want to get on top of a squishy enemy backline that keeps running away, slows them down, and lets them actually get an opportunity to do some damage. So there is a place to use this. Divine Devour, it says it's anti-tank, but I really don't feel like it is. I don't feel like it's specifically positioned to deal with tanks, but it does do a lot of damage. The Spellblade deals bonus physical damage based on your maximum health, so Scion, I could see actually be a champion that wants to build this because he can stack up so much bonus health. And when Spellblade hits a champion, you heal for 60% of the damage amount, so really able to sustain through. Like I said, it doesn't feel like anti-tank to me. It feels like almost like a tank item. Like, if you want to play a more aggressive built tank build, like you would build Divine Devour. So it feels weird to me, but we'll kind of see how it works in game. It may be more anti-tank than I'm giving it credit for right off the bat. Your Enchanter Mythics are Shrelia's Battle Song to start with. Now, this is basically just Shrelia's Reverie. You gain the bonus movement speed on active, but it also gives your allies bonus magic damage on the next 3 attacks or ability hits. So you're able to not only tell the whole team, here we go, it's team fight time, but also buff up their damage at the same time. So Leona, for example, this is her item right here. Meanwhile, if you're a more defensive tank support like Taric or Braum, Lock of the Iron Solari is going to be your item to build. Intervention, you still gain the shield, but it also now gives the aura again of armor and magic resistance, and grants you more armor, magic resistance, aura for every other legendary item you have. Now, 13 armor and MR is not hugely impactful, but it's still 13 more armor and MR that you would have ordinarily, so that's still a big deal, and it's definitely good if you're just trying to weather an enemy team's initiation. Moonstone Renewer, meanwhile, is what I would consider to be the Enchanter Mythic item. It has the Vital Stream passive, where when you affect champions with attacks or abilities, you heal the most damage nearby ally, and every second you spend in combat with champions increases the healing effect. What this means, and it's on a 2-second cooldown, so what this means is that you don't have to be worried about specifically using a heal button in order to keep proccing the heals. You just have to be, for example, your Sona, you're basically just pressing all of your buttons, and you're getting heals every 2 seconds, because your abilities are constantly affecting nearby champions. It does work better on more extended team fights, so an assassin popping in and instantly annihilating your carry, this item will do nothing for you, but hopefully they built the Immortal Shield Bow to compensate for that. Either way, I do like where this is at, giving you that bonus healing, but also meaning that you can't just heal infinitely out of combat. You have to be in combat in order to proc the Vital Stream with champions, so like where that's at. There are a bunch of new legendaries. I honestly am not going to talk about all of them. There is a tremendous amount of here to talk about if I wanted to cover all of it. So definitely go ahead and read the full changes if you want to see exactly what they do. Real quick, touching on Navori Quickblade, it's basically just TFT's Spear of Shojin. I can definitely see this is going to be good on champions like Tryndamere, of course, but on champions like Lucian or Corki, for example, who really want to be refunding their cooldowns and casting more often, this will be good, and this combos well with the new Essence Reaver, which we'll get to here in a moment. Force of Nature is back. This is your very high magic resistance item because taking damage grants you movement speed and magic resistance, stacking up to 5 times, allowing you to chase down those pesky mages and take less damage as the fight goes on. Serpent's Fang lets assassins deal with protect the carry compositions. If you have an Ivern and an Orianna and a Janna or something protecting the Kog'Maw, Serpent's Fang lets you deal 300% additional damage to shields. Screw your shields, that Kog'Maw's still gonna die. Horizon Focus is your good item for long-range mages. Xerath immediately springs to mind, but Lux can make use of this, Syndra can make use of this, a few mages can make use of it, because either damaging them at over 850 range or immobilizing them reveals them increases your damage dealt. Syndra, for example, can set this up with an Orb Kick, stunning them, getting the damage amp, then QWR, getting a ton of damage down. Could be some fun things to do, and it gives 100 AP, which is very relevant. Demonic Embrace, we talked about that a little bit above. This is a big deal here. Serylda's Grudge, giving you your damaging abilities slow by 30% for 1 second. This is actually kind of a big deal because a champion like Garen, for example, this is just an AD Rylai's Crystal Scepter. That's really huge if you're an AD champion that wants to get into range. I'm wondering if this would proc on something like Darius Hemorrhage. If it does, that's absolutely absurd, and I wouldn't be surprised if it had the same 33% effectiveness for AoE damage, something along those lines. But either way, love this item. This does give... It's a squishier item, but it definitely gives options for champions to either kite backwards or to keep enemy champions in one place. Silverweave Legplates is a Quicksilver Sash item for fighters specifically, so if you don't want Mercurial Scimitar, this is a good option. It gives you health, it gives you magic resistance, it gives you AD. That's going to be a good option there. Kempung Chainsword is basically just your AD fighter Grievous Wounds item. Instead of buying an Executioner's Calling and just sitting on it, knowing you're never going to upgrade it, you can actually upgrade this item and keep those Grievous Wounds going. That's pretty nice. And I really love these Ancient Runestones. Now, if you remember Sightstone that gave you wards back in the day, instead, this addresses the problem that supports have where they can never actually hit 6 items because they have to keep an item slot available for control wards. This item stores your control wards, and up to 3 control wards, which is more than you're able to store currently. And if you place 20 stealth wards, it transforms into an item that gives you 25 ability haste and can be upgraded further with gold to give you 40 ability haste and 10% movement speed. And it also upgrades your stealth ward and control ward caps by 1. I'm not sure if that's your storage cap or if your ward placement cap. Either way, it's a huge upgrade and supports. Love this item, absolutely. I can see your first item after your Mythic being an Ancient Runestone, just so you can immediately start storing those control wards and working on the Visions of Ishtal quest. Love this item. This is a very elegant design, and I like what it does for the support role. A bunch of legendary items were updated here as well. Infinity Edge, I do want to touch on this really quickly because Infinity Edge is still going to be a very core item. It's less core now that Mythics exist, but what it does is say if you're going for a very critical strike focused build, this is still going to be your go-to, especially if you're someone like Caitlyn or Tristana and you're really hard bound to crit. This is still going to be good. Now, the reason this is relevant is because critical strike damage is down to 175% rather than 200% like it is currently on live. Now, Infinity Edge giving you the additional 8% critical strike damage per 20% critical strike chance means that you can get up to about 215% critical strike damage by building this item if you're at 100% crit. This means it's still basically core on champions like Yasuo and Yone, who are easily able to get to that 100% crit strike chance. If you're really stacking up the critical strike, Infinity Edge basically means that you're doing similar amounts of damage that you're used to before. I like where this item is at. It's not a must-buy anymore, but if you are building crit, you love it. Ginsu's Rageblade is really interesting here. Instead of it still has Phantom Hit, which I hate. I don't think that effect should be in the game. But it converts your critical strikes, or it converts your critical strike chance into magic damage on hit. You can't crit once you build this item, but based on your critical strike chance, you deal more magic damage on hit. So this has some interesting applications like I talked about with Kraken Slayer, which gives you the true damage every 3 auto attacks. Every 3rd attack applies on hits twice, so you're applying that bonus true damage twice. You can't crit anymore, but you're converting all that crit that you built into more on hit damage, and then you can combine that with the other on hit items that exist in the new item system. So it's interesting. I don't think Phantom Hit deserves to exist in the game, but at the very least I can admit that the Ginsu's Rageblade design here is good. We touched on Essence Reaver here real quick. The Spellblade is what gives you the mana back, so that's going to be nice, especially with the Navori Swiftblade. Phantom Dancer, this is technically a revert, where it gives you the Spectral Waltz passive back. You get ghosting and movement speed for 2 seconds upon attacking. Attacking 5 times also grants you 40% attack speed. This is 80% attack speed on a single item. Callista absolutely loves this item, as do a lot of other champions that just want to attack often, rather than caring about how much damage they actually do. So I really do like where this is at. Stoneplate, this is a really elegant change on Stoneplate. Rather than giving damage reduction, it gives you a shield based on 100% of your bonus health that decays over 2.5 seconds. So you care about when you pop this ability because you need to make the most of that shield. And you increase your bonus armor and MR by 3% for 6 seconds when a champion damages you, stacks 5 times, 1 per enemy. What this means is that if you're Malphite, you go in, you initiate, you hit a bunch of champions, you pop your monolith immediately, all the champions dump their damage on you, all that damage is tanked on your big monolith shield, you stack up all of your strength of stone immediately, and once that shield is gone, you have all of this bonus armor and magic resistance ready to go. So really nice design, and definitely a more skillful use of monolith rather than just kind of pressing it like you did before with the Metallicize and gaining DR for quite a good period of time. And addresses some of the hedge cases where Cho'Gath could use his Stoneplate active and then one-shot you from full because he gains 100% bonus health, true damage scaling with his health, that sort of thing. So I like where this item is at. Frozen Heart and Randomize have now an effect that reduces incoming damage from attacks by scaling with total health, but by a flat amount, capped at 40% of the attack's damage. I like where this is at. A Mumu, for example, absolutely loves this in conjunction with his E passive, so that's kind of fun to think about. The Hydras both lost their active effects. They only have the passive damage nearby. However, they do still have some additional effects where Titanic gives you bonus AD based off your total health, and Ravenous Hydra causes physical vamp to also apply to true damage. Darius, anybody? He dunks you and heals all of his health back. Fiora deals a tremendous amount of true damage and now heals for it. Camille deals true damage and can now heal for it. Definitely good items for those champions. Black Cleaver has some interesting effects here. The Squish passive, which is hilariously named, gives you bonus physical damage based on their missing health once you fully shredded them. Darius, he stacks that super easily with Hemorrhage, and now he's dealing bonus damage based on 5% of their missing health. He already wants to execute you. That's going to be a big deal for him. He's definitely hardbound to this item. A champion like Garen is already going to be hardbound to this item, so they both love this. I love that design in particular. Sterix Gauge and Death Stance. These are both two very elegant changes to these items to address their problematic situations. Sterix Gauge gives you health back over 6 seconds whenever you deal or take damage against an enemy champion, and it stacks and refreshes per unique champion up to 5 times. Lifeline, meanwhile, if you would go below 30% HP, you gain a shield based on your stacks of rage. What this means is that, again, I'm a fighter. I use the new item to dash myself in the middle of the enemy team. I'm dealing damage. They all dump damage onto me. My lifeline shield triggers. I get a big shield because I'm hitting everybody. I'm getting champion healing from my rage passive stacked 5 times. So by the time that shield expires, I've healed up a ton of health. I'm no longer under 30%. There's some big effects that this can actually have. I like what this means for fighters. Death Stance as well. This is no longer an item where you say, I just take less damage and heal it off the next wave that comes my way. Now this item forces you to commit to a fight. You take 35% of your physical damage over 3 seconds instead, but champion takedowns grant you 30% movement speed, cleanse the remaining damage that you would have taken from Ignore Pain, and heal you for 20% of your total health. This item is now hardbound to fighters. I don't feel like ranged characters care about this at all because they don't want to commit to a fight like this. Meanwhile, a champion like Garen or Darius or champions with executes can commit to a fight because they know as soon as they can get that first frag, they stop ignoring pain. They more or less just had 35% DR for the entirety of that fight, and they heal for 20% of their total health at the same time. That's a big deal. Plus the movement speed to help them keep the fight going. It now feels like you're taking a dance with death rather than right now where it's just you get DR. But the Rune King still exists. I know I talked briefly about how it might have gotten replaced by some of the other items, but it is still here. The active effect is gone. Instead, attacking a champion 3 times steals 25% of their movement speed for 2 seconds on a 20-second cooldown. So just getting those 3 hits off gives you that kiting effect. Pretty much once per team fight, but it doesn't mean in lane. It gives some champions that build Bork options to really just say, hey tank, you were trying to retreat back to your tower. No, you don't. I've got Blade of the Rune King and you're not going anywhere. So interesting design there. Real quick, touching on Zekes Convergence here, the Accomplice, I love that chain. That's really funny as compared to what it was before. And now whenever you immobilize an enemy, your Accomplice's attacks and spells deal the bonus magic damage, once per attack or spell per enemy. This means that you don't have to commit fully to a fight. It's not a big go button saying, I'm Leona, I pressed R, here we go. It just says anytime you go for a fight, you can be proccing this bonus damage. So it is still going to be a good item on champions like Leona or Thresh or Blitzcrank that want to start with a fight. Knight's Vow, meanwhile, is a better item for durable supports that just want to play defense. Mostly unchanged, but you gain the 35% bonus movement speed when moving towards an ally at less than 50% health. So that is nice to help you kind of accelerate into position to protect them in case you were out of position. Mikhail's, you got the heal back on the active, which is nice because you took the first damage from the damaging skill shot crowd control effect like Morgana binding. You cleanse the binding, you heal off the damage it dealt. That's kind of nice. Thornmail, we talked a little bit about this before, how these all apply their grievous wounds. The important thing about Thornmail is when you immobilize someone, you get the bonus effect, so you can actually actively go and apply grievous wounds as opposed to saying, please auto-attack me, I'd like you to have grievous wounds on you. So there is some niche cases where Thornmail will be relevant against a champion like Vladimir, for example, because as long as you can, for example, Maokai W him, you can apply 60% grievous, which is pretty cool. And very small tweaks to Mermana and Seraph's Embrace, not really worth talking, but very small changes here. Either way, moving on to removed legendary items here, the biggest thing here for me is Frozen Mallet is gone. Thank God. That item was impossible to balance. It was always abused, and so it is finally out of the game. On top of that, there were a few other items here removed. I feel like for the most part, the removed items make sense. I don't feel like any items that were removed were, either don't have a supplement already in the item system. So Adaptive Helm was gone, but we have Force of Nature now. Athens is gone, but we have the Enchanter Mythic now. GLP may as well have been added back into the game with that AP mana item. So I feel like generally these were all removed with purpose. These are all the items that were maintained. They pretty much work exactly the same way that you're used to. Their stat changes might be changed, but their effects will basically be the same, so no worries about that. And finally, jungle items. These now are items that you buy right off the bat. They give you the Tooth and Nail passive plus Leyline Walker to regenerate mana, plus the bonus experience right off the bat, so you're not worried about immediately recalling as soon as you can afford your upgraded jungle item. And smiting 5 times consumes the item entirely, grants you its stats permanently, and upgrades your smite to whichever one you want. If you got the Doran's Forge Heart, you get Challenging Smite. If you bought the Hail Seed, you'll get Chilling Smite. Love where this is at. This means that junglers are not behind the rest of the field in terms of building their first mythic. They can grab this item, immediately start working on their mythic, and once they smite 5 times, they get the bonuses permanently. Love where that's at. Love that design. A very elegant way of getting junglers into the new item system with everyone else. And that's going to be it, guys. I know that was a lot to cover. I tried to cut through as much of it as I could, but I'm sure I still talked for a long period of time, so definitely go read the article yourself, and let me know which changes you're most excited for down in the comments. I know I'm really excited about a lot of the fighter itemization, especially because my boy Urgot gets to actually use some of it now, but let me know which you're most excited for down in the comments, or anything you're scared of in particular. I know these items are very scary in their effects, so if you guys think there's stuff that could be abusable, let's chat about it. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. Now talk to you all later.